Hey, everybody. Welcome to Impossible Live. Welcome back if you're joining us again. Regardless of whether you're joining us live or for a replay, just warm welcome. And totally delighted that you're joining us today for Impossible Live Thin Line, which is an amazing song by the Indigo Girls that fantastic Shanti selected. I'm delighted she accepted my invitation. We had the pleasure of meeting in a positive intelligence community of practice, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging community of practice, which is one of my two most favorite places in the PQ community. And I've been a member for a bit, and Shanti pops in with this beautiful smile and amazing energy. And just for me, it's like one of those really wonderful, safe places where you never know what other great, good humans you're going to discover and who's going to pop in. But I'd love to give Shanti a chance just to introduce herself and to really thank her for accepting my invitation and share more about your gems. And we're going to have to fix this. We're live today, but we're going to have to fix this. We're in the same state. So we are going to meet live.
Truly live.
Truly live. But thank you so much. Welcome to Impossible Live, Shanti. And thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I remember when you first extended it, and I was so touched and just thrilled that we're finally doing it. I did the whole corporate thing happily for a couple decades plus, primarily in sales leadership roles, and it was wonderful and I was blessed. And when the last gig came to an end, just wanted to make an intentional shift for myself, definitely outside of media, just because I'd been doing it for so long and the landscape was changing. So I wound up in learning about, discovering the world of professional coaching. And it seemed too good to be true. I didn't know it was its own thing. And was thrilled to find out it was its own thing, and kind of journeyed through that space for a couple of years. And recently-ish, over the past couple of years, opened my own professional coaching practice. I help LGBTQ plus and underrepresented people confidently thrive in their careers by being fully themselves. Just found that calling for that particular niche really in the past few months. And kind of that was the click, I think, that I was waiting for. I had done a lot of intentional soul searching and thinking. And when I realized that was what I wanted to do, it was kind of just hit me in a visceral way, in a really beautiful, visceral way. And then that led me to my podcast, which I'm doing, which I know we'll talk more about, but I don't want to just keep rambling, but that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm coaching and I'm podcasting, and I'm really enjoying it. Oop, I lost your audio somehow.
What you're going to laugh about is I muted myself for a hot sec as awesome. I realized, as we're using StreamYard, and I've been getting a lot of comments and responses from people in StreamYard communities like myself who've been using it for a while. And today it looks like StreamYard is not necessarily connecting with LinkedIn. So this is going to feel a little bit like one of Shanti's podcasts that will then have to reshare so that those on LinkedIn are able to catch up. But I laugh. One of the things I usually do is I look on my phone just to make sure, hey, lights, camera, action, all those little, behind the scenes little checkpoint things.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn says we'll be starting soon. So we want to thank you who for joining us, because we can see somebody else is here. And if you're popping in on Facebook, please let us know who you are. We're looking forward to your comments. One of the things I love about what you said is that evolution. And I think of it from the perspective of going from heavy corporate. And years ago, I was in the garment industry. So spent a bit of time there, shortly after settling in, I'd have to say it was my first profession kind of. Jen, yes. Thank you so much, Jen. Jen is here. Thank you, Jen. Oh, I love technology. And another amazing positive intelligence coach in the house
Awesome.
and an upcoming guest. So thank you so much, Jen, for letting us know. We just gonna keep going. Um, but I think it's funny as Shanti's saying, we have that evolution from how we start and where we start. And some of us feel like we started in a shell, or I say in a turtle shell. And I say that as an introvert, and really grateful to have a conversation with amazing Carla Sellers about that this morning. As I'm cheering her on as she's launching a new group and program. Carla's been with me from Impossible Live from the beginning, and she said one of the things that she never thought before we started working was that I was an introvert. I have friends, coaches, clients. They're like, "Don't say that! Don't say that! You're not an introvert." Well, on Thursday, I'll go back to a live conference, a client's live conference that I usually sponsor
Yep.
for the first time in 5 years.
Wow.
So the introvert is here, and I really understand the thin line part. Tell me about that lovely line we were talking about. One of your favorite lines in the song. So we can
Yeah.
kind of share that, because I'd love to share not just the evolution, but hey, this is why this song really hit Shanti.
Yeah. So it's done by the Indigo Girls. It's actually a cover of a song by a gentleman named Gerard McHugh. And all Indigo Girls all the time. Love all kinds of music, but they're at the top. And this one line in the song has really hit me hard at a couple different points in my life. So the line is, "Now I'm trying to get back to what I know I should be, hoping to God I was just a temporary absentee." And so the first time in my life that it hit me was I was pretty young. I was living in Manhattan, uh, first job, banging around the city, having a lot of fun. And I like lyrics generally, and they don't necessarily have to feel like they're directed toward me for them to be meaningful. I can just say, wow, that's a beautiful lyric. In this case, when I heard that, now I'm trying to get back to what I know I should be, it was talking to me, right? I felt that it wasn't just a beautiful line, but it was talking to me in that moment. And I had, for a variety of reasons, fear, other people's expectations, um, really wandered away from my true north. And I didn't know it. I wasn't conscious of it. And even when I knew that line was speaking to me, it was just an inner knowing that didn't actually compute in my brain. So I just sort of took note of it. And it was, later as my life unfolded more that I realized exactly what it meant. And then again, recently, it hit me hard, but this time in a more empowering way. Now I'm trying to get back to what I know I should be. I've been in a very space of creativity and being inspired. And I've felt like I've been on the fringes of that for quite some time. And it was more just that call to like step over that line and fully immerse in that space. So the second time I heard it was from a much more empowering, like, you're almost there, just hang in, and it's coming. So that's what the line means to
Mm,
me.
that's really beautiful. You're reminding me again, and I was catching up with Carla today, and Carla is from Videos Reimagined. And Carla has been with me kind of from day one with my Impossible Lives. She does all of our amazing video editing, and gets us together on YouTube. And she's working on shorts and all sorts of amazing creative projects. And she really reminded me of kind of we laugh of those anniversary lines.
Mhm.
And, it's just like a milestone or a place where not necessarily we feel like we're stuck all the time, but sometimes we feel we're traveling,
Mhm.
we're going someplace. Or, as I was saying before, positive intelligence was just really starting to get to the point of exploring being fully present more, of really understanding that sometimes as an introvert, I can appear to check out. It's cool to just sit in the corner with a good cup of coffee or tea, or the teacher's kid. I'll just sit there with my pen and I'm good, or my good music, or my good view of the clouds or the music or the sky, or whatever I'm dreaming of. And it's really really easy to withdraw and to um, in some cases stay in what feels like a safer space or a comfort zone. And I have to say, I really hear you there, because I did it for decades.
Yeah.
um, I think it's one of the things too with transparency, um, that people talk all the time about just being authentic, being you. I had to go a little deeper in
Hmm.
my turtle shell and say, you need to be genuine. And I appreciate it, because this wonderful gentleman who I had the pleasure of meeting in Bryn Tillman's social sales link community, Gunnar Hood, brilliant, brilliant man. Very active on LinkedIn. If you have a chance, look him up. I will tag him later. But Gunnar said to me one day, "Who is it that Mel wants to show up as today?"
Hmm.
And I think that's the part that I really think of behind Thin Line. We can show up for others, we can show up for families, we can show up for communities, we can show up for employers, we show up for our clients, for groups that we participate in, no matter what our roles are. But the real reminder underneath there somewhere, I had to tap into genuine to remind me to let Mel out to play, because
Yeah.
she wasn't coming out to play much.
Yeah.
And I love it, because Shanti's middle name is something that I've been trying to channel this year during an extended season of gratitude, grief, and growth.
Yeah.
Um, I'm delighted to be adding more music into our possible lives. It was my dad's love language, as we're about to celebrate our first holidays in his
Hmm.
absence, in a
Yeah.
year where he would turn 90. And it really pushes us, and it causes me also to really think of, as we're saying, of the anniversaries. As today I'm watching people honor hostages that we're truly hoping are released and free
Hmm.
and back with their families, as we're honoring people we love, people we've lost, people we wish that we could spend some time with. As my saint behind the scenes waits for the anniversary celebration, which will become a pool party later.
Hmm.
You really, there are those lines. And I think whether it's the lines they have in the songs, or the lines that others draw, or the lines that some don't see, um, the invisible lines. So I know it's a lot, but I just really want to thank you for picking this particular song.
It's a pleasure. It's interesting. You talked about the turtle shell. I have this weird combination of introvert, extrovert, and I have called what I do when the introvert kicks in. I've called it turtling, and I thought I made that up. So I guess I didn't, but that's something that we share. And um, yeah, I think this presence has been a huge theme for me these past couple of years, to slow down and be present, like you were talking about, for other people, and also, for myself. And it was in creating that space and that kind of quiet and that opportunity to reconnect inwardly that kind of the cool magical things started to happen.
Well, I love you turtling. I haven't heard it before.
You may use
I
it. You may use it.
wonderful friends who we met in French Polynesia. How about that for a fun one?
Hmm.
Uh, were doing all of the snorkeling stuff. They had a room with a motu, and they'd wake up to beautiful sunrises or watch beautiful sunsets over the water. And they took this amazing picture of this turtle. And the thing, besides just, we all fell in love. We're exchanging pictures. So, like, we have about 1,600 photos
Yeah.
of French Polynesia, and we laughed because they kept telling you need to limit how much film you bring. And we were like, forget this. We're just going to get a digital camera. We'll be okay. We'll download stuff. But we spent most of our evenings having cocktails with our friends, downloading each other's photos. It was fantastic.
That's great.
But the turtling, there's this picture of this turtle shell, and I laughed because I love the water, and we ended up on this sea-doo kind of
Mm-hmm.
wave runner, and we were so in sync. I kept flipping us. It's a shame because they had to take a picture of us upright before I flipped us again. The good news was we'd forgotten the camera that day. I had no cash on us. We had no passport. We just had the sign and sale card. We knew we didn't need cash on this excursion. We were
That's
really
great.
lucky because I submerged us a couple of times, but I was driving really slow because I'm watching the turtles. So I will remember turtling now from a
Turtling.
whole different
Yeah,
perspective.
absolutely.
Wow. So I know some of our regular voices are a little quiet today. And Jen, thank you for being here and letting us know that even though the LinkedIn disconnect mm, isn't obvious on our end, it's the reminder that behind that thin line, there's always somebody there. But I love what Shanti, you really reminded me. We sometimes hold so much more energy for others
Yeah.
than we do for ourselves personally, whether it's the wellspring or, but I really, really appreciate you bringing it up from that perspective because it's a time where I'm really trying to acknowledge how much energy is needed, switch the role, switch the stages, switch from creative to linear, you
Yeah.
know. And what's that been like for you as you developed your amazing podcast?
Yeah, it's been so cool. So it's called Stories We Haven't Shared, and it's a campfire style interview series where underrepresented people talk about the extra layers we navigate as we wind our way into our careers specifically. And again, it was in that space of being a little quiet and a little more present, uh, and a little more introspective that um, it this kind of occurred to me. And before I get into that, I do just want to say that the idea of being present for yourself, or for me, for myself, and this may be obvious and or it may be a little bit cheesy, but if you can find that kind of calm and peace and joy inside, then you're showing up so much better for other people as well, and it's just becomes a byproduct of um, being grounded in that space. So at least that's been my experience. And so what happened as far as the podcast goes is when I announced my coaching niche, I told what I call two coming out at work stories. So I got to a point in my career where I was done hiding and I just wanted to be out with it, literally. And so I had these two moments where I came out to people in my career. Pretty comical in retrospect, not so much at the time necessarily, but um, so when I identified my coaching niche, I shared these two stories on LinkedIn, and I had a couple of very, very good friends who are also open-minded, curious, just lovely people say, I had no idea you went through that, nor did I realize that anyone went through anything like that, right? I either like, well, I'm a straight white dude or, straight white woman. And it's not in my frame of reference, and it didn't know. And I'm so glad that you shared that so that I understand that there are these alternate experiences going out there that people are having, and I would love to know about them. So thank you for telling the story. And I sat with that for a while and realized there were probably a lot of people like me who had stories like that they hadn't shared because we just kind of keep moving. And also kind of who wants to dwell in, I call it like the otherness, right? Who wants to dwell in that? You just want to you want to keep some momentum and not really look back and not pause and feel like you're um, wallowing in anything. I'm gonna keep moving, right? And at the same time, like that, when we're not sharing those stories, where there's a layer of humanity that's getting lost because that share isn't happening. So it just very simply became a reflection on that, and an idea to create a forum for people to be able to tell their stories, and have other people learn from similar and or different experiences. It's really meant for anyone who considers themselves underrepresented or in a marginalized group, as well as for allies, people like my friends who are like, I had no idea, I would love to know more of this, right? So yeah, space to gather, learn from each other, kind of look back, get whatever lessons there are to grab, and hang out. Really, it's a laid back vibe. It's a storytelling vibe, and it's been incredibly inspiring to speak with the people I've been speaking with, and get to spend time with them, and hear their stories. So
That's fantastic, and especially congrats on your launch.
oh, thank
Congrats
you.
on your amazing episodes. And for those of you who we haven't celebrated something recently, here's a virtual toast for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as you're approaching the stories part, and I love it because you're sharing it from the lens of having your own stories that you didn't necessarily share all the time or in different settings. But I love also that you've got a cool campfire in there. Where did the campfire come
Yeah.
from?
It's interesting. I have a good friend, former colleague, who I've been talking about podcasting with for the better part of a year and a half. And we also had shared a lot of our journeys with each other, and just we were very connected. And when I started to talk about the idea for the podcast, it was actually, she was the person that said, I picture a campfire, and you like storytelling, and you play the guitar, and I can just picture. And she came out with this vision, this picture of it. And the minute she said it, I knew that was exactly what I wanted to do. But I really have her to thank. Thank you, Mary Tess Rooney, because she said it, and that was, the rest is history.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. And the guitar piece, I think that was a part of it. I'm not a guitar pro, but I describe myself as a campfire strummer. So there you go. And music, you talked about music being such an important part of your journey and your dad's journey. Same for me. And I think it just transcends so much about the human experience. It's really a universal language. So I actually also have a segment on my podcast called It's My Podcast, So There Will Be Music. And I just simply ask people, if there is a song that you could put in a time capsule and preserve for all times for future generations, what would it be and why? And getting to learn some really excellent new music is a part of that. And yeah, I don't know. Campfire was just meant to be somehow.
I just think it matches and really aligns with your warmth and with your wonderful spirit and energy, and I think sometimes too that's the part, whether it's as introverts or whatever roles we're in, and I'm laughing about the roles that we're in because I started advanced trust facilitator certification training with Yvette Bethel of Organizational Soul. And I'm really thankful to Yvette for helping me, kind of really wrap around Ignite Trust and to kind of figure out, the Mel lane that I wasn't, that I needed to kind of show up. And, in the process of music, my dad had vascular dementia, so the music became essential to him. It was, a lever to kind of ramp up his energy for the day. I'd ask him how he was doing during a visit, and he'd say, I'm not sure. So I knew that was a day to go to YouTube. So I would get in trouble with mom for turning on DJ Cassidy, because DJ Cassidy would kind of hype pop up. Was playing some back in the day songs with beautiful women who he could admire and smile with, but we'd have the Nat King Cole kind of mellow, kind of chill out days too. But I think just the energy of the music and watching how much she responded to it. And yep, she's got an amazing Ann Catillas, amazing PQ coaches in the house. And saying she loves the campfire chat theme. You
Oh,
really, we're gonna share the link to Shanti's podcast because I'm just loving it from the chill out perspective. And then Shanti just gets real deep with her guests. So it's not really, it looks like chill. We're just, as she says, grab a comfortable seat,
mhm.
you know, and sit back and watch the magic of how they're exploring and sharing their wonderful stories. I think I'm admiring too the dedication with which you set it up, you know, because when I invited you on Possible Live, you're like, I'm working on some stuff. I'm working on some stuff. We'll get there. We'll get there. And I tell you, Shanti is definitely so much well worth the wait. I think the other thing too in your stories, um, and in your stories we haven't shared is the spaces that you and your guests, the really safe spaces that you and your guests are holding, not for each other, but for your listener.
Mm,
Uh,
mm,
and I think there's also a balance somewhere. I don't know whether positive intelligence is the key to that balancing act or whether it's emotional intelligence for me. But there's somewhere in that balance between being vulnerable
mhm.
and being transparent and really being selective about sometimes which stories we're sharing.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been fascinating. I mean, I had a guest come on my most current episode that I just released last week, and she shared something that only a handful of people in her life knew, and decided that she wanted this to be the space in which she shared it with a wider audience, and that's just so talk about vulnerable and brave. And I was so moved that she felt that she wanted to do it in that format. And it is an interesting balance of all of those things, vulnerability, authenticity, and those words are overused for sure. But they're, really getting to the essence. And then, yeah, everyone's got to decide which is the story that I most want to share, a story or stories, right? And the story could be an individual moment, or like, with me, my two coming out at work stories, right? So two moments in time. For some people, the story that they tell is a story arc. It's their journey from this point in their life to where they have arrived to. And I don't know, for me, it's fascinating every time. And I don't know going in for sure. Sometimes I don't know what story they're going to tell. Sometimes I have a pretty good idea. Sometimes I think I know, and they take it in another direction, and I love that as well. And to your point, I think positive intelligence and some of just the philosophies and skills associated with that are underlying it and making those kinds of conversations possible.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And Jen is sharing to be vulnerable, transparent without oversharing
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
putting yourself in a place of emotional danger can
Absolutely.
be a thin line. Ooh, Jen, such wisdom, and you're reminding me of a conversation that was just shared in a LinkedIn audio room earlier today, a Monday Mind Shift room, which is being hosted by Sean Michael, one of our Impossible Live community members. He just launched his Mind Shift last week, and I appreciate it because he's doing it from a mental health perspective and um, being a coach around helping a lot of men
Mm-hmm.
to kind of explore that. We have our different identities, we have our different roles, and I think that's one thing talking about with a lot of clients who are leaders or emerging leaders, or they're full-time employees about to start that muggle or side hustle, and how do I get it out there so it's not just the best kept secret, so that people understand the problems and solutions that I really want to help others solve. And I think, as you would say, it was something that I really had to think about from the lens of this conference that I'm attending on Thursday. I've attended for my promotional products hat angle experience in the industry, and I was just starting to really explore coaching outside of event coaching.
Mm.
So it'll be interesting now, with the trust lens or the leadership coaching or the collaboration coaching, to kind of show up as, I'm still the gift lady, still the gift
Yeah.
sensitive lady, but the coaching hat, it's a whole different lens. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And that part, I think, in the stories we haven't shared, I really want to thank you about that, because I'm really thinking about that as I reconnect Thursday with some wonderful people I haven't seen in 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
How are you, because you talked about energy before, how are you getting your energy in line to show up for what I can tell it's a big moment for you in a lot of different ways?
tremendous amounts of naps,
Nice.
a lot of sleep. People are like, "Oh man, you look so youthful." They should. They would laugh at the birthday that I'm celebrating a little bit later this month, which may be a day where I have to decide whether, uh, might need a day to just chill and relax, and especially through the grief lens. But I think the making the space to process, the really focusing on being fully present, what's something I need to focus on in the minute. You know, I appreciate, because one of the coaches I'm around is like, "Hey Mel, time to update your headshot. Those of us who haven't seen you in 5 years, we want to know who you are on Thursday." So the new LinkedIn profile headshot will pop up, but, and a good friend, I thank Jonathan Howard, king of energy for me, and an amazing uh, somebody too to introduce you to, Shanti, as an amazing guest. Jonathan is my one of my bravery uh, uh, inspirers. I had the pleasure of meeting him in person. Somebody I adored introduced him to me, and I remember thinking, we're half asleep. I'm in Crocs. He's in really colorful Converses, and we're meeting at a morning breakfast meeting. And I just remember falling in love with his energy from the second I met him.
Mm.
I just know whatever happens on Thursday, I'll be Mel on a bit less sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be Mel on a bit less rest. And it's just like, I always coach other people around events and showing up about that. But I think I'm really honored by the energy journey, being surrounded by amazing somatic healers, um, by, Catherine Andron, the love astrologer, my human design coaches, and we thank you all for showing up from that community. But really, I think part of it is the acknowledging, need to not be nervous, need to be present.
Yeah.
And whatever the energy level is Thursday morning, as I'm half asleep, as I leave my house at 7 a.m., possibly a little bit before, so that the introvert can arrive early, settle in without having to build and create a whole display. I don't need to have the marketing head there. I can go and sit in and find a wonderful seat in the corner and a good cup of tea and some great company, and whatever energy that brings. But I think Jen and I have been talking about it a lot too, just as many of us have in positive intelligence, in the beta pods, the beta communities, that part of just being able to just show up as we are,
Mm-hmm.
and to have more transparency about the energy that it's taken many of us to sort through mental health issues, emotional health issues. Um, what I laugh at, I'll really remember on Thursday, is my pop was watching my YouTube about trust. And I
Mm.
will trust on Thursday that his not so little girl anymore will show up with whatever energy. That was the cool PQ journey because PQ taught me sustainable energy. I had no
Yeah.
idea what in the world that was.
Right.
I met other amazing coaches who, the somatic healers, the energy leadership experts, and people like, oh, right, you're okay, you're there. And from the emojis, we're not always there. We don't always know it. So I really, mm, not just appreciate you and your suggestions, but really just a reminder. It's okay to acknowledge the nerves,
Mhm.
but the reminder, just be fully present. There's somebody around who's about to share something with us, a story. We're about to learn a lesson. We're about to see a aha. I'm excited about somebody that'll present who I haven't seen present in 7 years.
Yeah.
Um, but I appreciate what you said before about our level of humanity possibly being lost. And that somewhere in that need for the energy to just acknowledge, whether we're acknowledging anniversaries of horrible things that happened a year ago, or beautiful things that have happened a year ago, or yesterday, or mm, I think I just want to curl around on Shanti's campfire.
Hmm. Well, you any time, any day, you know that, and your support has been deeply felt, through the miles. So I want to thank you for that very sincerely.
It goes both ways. Hi, Christina. How are you? Woo, speaking of energy, I'm telling you, lovely energy in the house. And it's we we need it to continue because otherwise we don't see what's around those thin lines. We don't see what's behind the veils. We don't see what's behind the mask. And Christina, warm welcome to Impossible Live. Delighted you're joining us today. Shanti has an amazing podcast you got to check out, Christina.
Thank
And
you.
Christina, let us know in the comments a way that we can help you in between Impossible Lives. I know it's been a while since we've had a chance to chat, but if there was something, Shanti, that we could help you get out other than your amazing podcast stories we haven't shared, um, or introduce you to the types of coaching clients you're looking to work with, what would those things be?
Oh, thank you for asking that. As far as the coaching goes, it is really anyone who considers themselves marginalized, who is working their way through their career. Um, and marginalized can be traditional, historically marginalized groups, or it can be anyone who's just having and feeling outside. I mean, I have a very good friend who was actually on one of my podcasts, and she's older in her career, and she's feeling it, right? She's feeling like, I'm not in the mainstream anymore. She's feeling different. She's feeling her age in all of the ways, right? And she's one of the most positive people on the planet, but she's just noticing this difference. Um, so I think it's really anyone that just feels like they're a little bit on the outside of what the mainstream is, and looking to get somewhere in their career that they sense they can be, and they currently aren't for whatever reason, right? So, it could be a career transition. It could be, um, questioning if you're in the right focus. Have you chosen the right focus for your career? It could be, I was just placed in a management position and no one taught me how to be a manager. It could be, issues navigating internally with other people that you work with. There are a million things, right? But I think ultimately, having gone through my career in what I now only realize looking back was a slightly different path. And knowing what that feels like, I feel like between my lived experience and my professional experience, I'm kind of bringing that all together, and just can't wait to support other people who are looking to bring all of themselves to their careers to accomplish what they feel innately they are capable of, right? And I think that goes back to thin line again. Right now, I'm trying to get back to what I know I should be. There's something telling them there's there's a place for me, and I'm still moving toward it. And I would love to help people with that. I've said on the podcast that I feel like my career and my life have unfolded exactly as they were meant to, and I have no regrets. And having gone through my own experiences, if I can help other people navigate with some additional clarity and grace on their paths, and maybe save them a step or two, or maybe help them get ahead of things a little bit, that's what I'm hoping to do.
That's beautiful. I wish decades ago, and it took me a really long time to to find to find coaches. I was lucky when I was younger to be adopted by some amazing, brilliant, creative people who knew that I was on the road less traveled. And I really appreciated them. They encouraged the thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
They, would feed the thirst for knowledge. But I think also, as you're talking about somebody in us approaching different ages and working with people across different generations. There's so many different communication patterns. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate it from the perspective of a training Michelle Hayward did in Thought Leadership Branding Club. And she was talking about the stats that Gen Z is 70%, 75% of the workforce shortly. Mm. And our language, our ability to communicate across generations, it's just getting harder and harder and harder. Mm-hmm. I had put it in a LinkedIn headline, and somebody says, "Are you helping people navigate gender transitions?" And I started laughing because I mentioned wanting to help both genders and multiple identities and multiple generations. And for some, it really can be confusing. We don't always speak the same language.
No, for sure.
We're not always in the same line. We may be in the buffet line, maybe in the concert line, we may be in the, the loo line, or the water closet line, as our friends would say across the pond. But I think your ability to just reach out to people and help us bridge those gaps, so appreciated.
Thank you.
I had no idea years ago when I thought I had an allergy to coaching, and good friends and collaborators who were clients are like, "Well, you're a coach." And I'm like, "Nope, I'm a consultant." That's what they said in the promotional products days. But I think no matter what we call each other, no matter what we call ourselves, that reminder, as you would say, whatever side of the line we're on, and whether it's coloring outside of the lines or coloring within those lines, or playing in the world where that turtle exists, where there are no lines on the water.
Yeah.
Figure out what our perspective would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Shanti, what's an upcoming? I'm sorry, go. I didn't
want to. No, go ahead. You're good.
What's an upcoming? So you mentioned an upcoming podcast guest that we can look forward to. What's been the most fun podcast that you've done so far? Was it being a podcast guest on your own podcast, or was it interviewing someone?
No, I would say not being the one who was interviewed. That was not my first choice. I mean, I did it intentionally, and I'm glad I did it, but not the most fun. I really enjoy speaking to other people, and I don't, it's hard. I think what's fun is when a guest starts talking about something that neither of us knew they were going to talk about, and I get that tingle where I know that something magic is happening, right? I had a guest, Kelly Campbell, who started talking about gender fluidity and pronouns, and she's extremely well spoken. and a very deep thinker who makes things extremely accessible. And she started to talk about it. And I got the chills. I was like, this is gold, right? And neither one of us knew she was going to talk about it. And I just let it happen because it was just so beautiful to hear her putting something so intangible into words. And yeah, seeing people then respond to it. I was with my dad, and he listened to that part of the podcast, and we were together, and he asked me to pause it 2 different times because he was so really interested in understanding. And it is nuanced. And just to see him lean in, and that Kelly's words were um, bringing this to his awareness and raising his curiosity. And he's a kind person. So it was tapping into that. And just to watch him really want to understand, and something that otherwise I don't think ever would have been a topic he would have even thought about, right? It wouldn't have been, just like my friend said, it wouldn't have been in his awareness. He wouldn't have had any idea. So it was so cool to see that kind of full circle. The last thing my dad said to me at the end of that conversation is, my dad's, in his early 80s. He's like, should I be putting my pronouns, should I be putting he, him on my business cards? And I thought, well, isn't that a beautiful question, right? So that was cool. They've all been fun. They've really been fun. I had someone else, I haven't put this episode out yet. It's probably going to be episode 5 or 6. And he, among other things, he's a professional Broadway actor, and he wound up singing. And I just sat back and I was like, wow, this is like, I get to do this. I don't believe I get to do this, right? So a million just moments that I'm so grateful for.
Well, that is fantastic. We are definitely sharing lots of Shanti links to check out, and when you have a chance, check out stories we haven't shared. You'll see links for them shortly. You'll also see amazing Shanti. Well, hopefully we'll get to hear a little bit more guitar around the campfire.
I think so. I think so.
But oh, I can't thank you enough for just joining us today, for bringing your magic. And normally we only get a chance to hang out with each other, twice a month maximum in the positive intelligence, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging community of practice. But I've been loving a chance to connect with you more and enjoy more of your amazing content and your stories on LinkedIn, and just listen to your beautiful voice on YouTube.
Thank you.
Thank you for creating space for stories we haven't shared, for creating space in your schedule to join us today. I hope you'll come back to join us. Yes, Christina, the links are coming shortly.
Thank you.
We're going to add Shanti's podcast to your library. And thank you just for wonderful you, for your joy, for your energy. And we got to meet in person before let's try and do this before the winter. I'll be down in a month to pick up Auntie for a family baby shower, and I have to create some time or some space for us to connect. But
let's do it. And thank you for bringing me into your beautiful space here in this community you've built. It's really beautiful and inspiring for me as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who have popped in live or on a replay, stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, and stay in touch. And take great care, especially as others are sharing their stories today, some that we may need to open our ears and our hearts to listen to in a different way, or as Shanti's dad did, pause it, come back to it, revisit it, have a conversation with somebody you love, who you adore, about questions, and discover. And until then, we hope you have a magnificent day filled with opportunities and possibilities. And thanks again for popping in live or for replays of Impossible Live.
Thank you.
If we haven't had a conversation, reach out. with some smiles across the miles, and let's stay in touch. Thanks again, Shanti.
Thank you.